economic interest. This is the form that the state of Illinois requires various local government officials to sign. Nobody likes it. Nobody liked the old one. Nobody likes the new one. The General Assembly, from what we were told at a recent seminar sponsored by the township officials of Illinois, said none of the members of the General Assembly like it either, but they're not going to change it. So we're going to be stuck with this for at least a year and perhaps longer. But let's talk about what it is. And so everybody remembers it's the yellow form. Gentleman over there has one. We all remember the yellow form, except when I do this lecture for a statewide organization, which I'm on the board of directors, and all the people from Cook County go, no, it's not yellow, it's light brown. I said, well, maybe in Cook it's light brown, the rest of the state, ours is yellow. Okay, so this is the new statute. It amends the Statement of Economic Interest form. And this new form is stated verbatim, word for word, in the state statute, in Title V of the Illinois Compiled Statutes, Section 420/4A-103. Okay? And that's where they got the wording. The form is reasonably the same as that. Can everybody hear me? Sure. With my big mouth, the people can't hear? I'm just stunned.
There's no microphone by him either.
There's one out of my collar.
No, he's talking about the one that he's working on now.
Taking out the blaster now.
Yeah, I don't want to blast.
Does it have speakers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All around.
So basically, while Patrick's doing good, reasonable diligence, yeah, you're going to be sorry you gave me a microphone. As I said, he's going to be sorry he gave me a microphone.
Is that okay? That's loud, that's good?
I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Okay, the form has changed because last year, the Illinois General Assembly, that includes both houses and the governor, signed what's called Public Act 102-644, and that's what amended this law. That's why we have to change what we're doing this year. It went into effect as of January 1, 2022. That's why we have to do it for the disclosure. The disclosure this year is due on May 2nd, 2022 in your office of the county clerk. And basically it amends the Statement of Economic Interest Act, which is at Title V Illinois Compiled Statutes. You can see it, it's in the materials. It increases the financial disclosures. When I read the first question, my first reaction was, what the blank, blank, blank? And I was happy to be in a meeting of township attorneys. And they said, let's talk about this new form. And I hadn't even looked at it at that moment. So I picked it up and I was looking at it and one of my fellow attorneys, Bob Russell, who's from the Peoria area, who represents 25 or 30 townships, he said he's had planning commissions threaten to resign. It's not unusual that people are looking at this form and saying, this is way too intrusive. I'm not going to tell you that, but the key answer that most of the attorneys will tell you is stop, take a breath, read the definitions of what an asset is and what a debt is, and you won't be so upset. It's not that bad. I haven't filled mine out yet, so I'm not sure if they're telling the truth on that, but basically, these are the practical rules that govern our yellow forms. Breathe, relax, it's not really that bad. Read the definitions, as I just said, of asset and debt before you start. And if you're going to start doing it, as the form says, it might be a good idea to have your income tax returns that you just filed for last Friday, assuming you ever filed it last Friday, and any investment returns you may have. Because you may eventually have to ask your accountant, your auditor, or your tax preparer whether they think these assets that you may own, the funds, the intangible assets, whether it qualifies as an asset under this law. If you're not sure, report it. Report the asset included. But remember, if you report it as the asset or the debt, it's public knowledge. Anyone can walk into the county clerk's office and say, I want to see it. I want to see what Joe Smith disclosed this year. That happened once in my history. A reporter for the Freeport Journal-Standard, before he left the town and started trying to burn down churches and go to prison for that, he went in and wanted to see a statement of economic interest. And they asked him, well, why? Why do you want to look at it? It was right on the form. Why do you want to look at this? He said, I'm curious. That's all he had to say. And he got to see that official's statement of economic interest with all the disclosures. So remember, if you're reporting it, people are going to be able to see it. And if anyone has questions as I go along, don't wait. Raise your hand, and I'll try to answer them right then and there. Okay, general principles, give you some good ideas. All the new compliance form asks for is good faith compliance. You may be wrong. That doesn't mean you're violating the law. If you've taken good faith efforts to answer it, that's all you have to do. If you know it's wrong, you include it anyway, that's not good faith. So when we talk about penalties, and I've never in 41 years as a municipal attorney ever seen anyone penalized for an incomplete or incorrect filing a statement of economic interest. But since they upped the penalties on it, it's good to try to be as accurate as you can. Absolute correctness is not required. If you really believe what you said and you have a good faith belief of that, that's a correct answer then. Well, you may be wrong though, but you show good faith by doing whatever a reasonable person would do. If they were asked the question, what a reasonable person? Well, did you ask your accountant? No. Did you read it? No. And it's not a good idea. It's just do what a normal person would. As I said, it's always a good idea to consult your accountant, your tax preparer, or your financial advisor. They may be able to help you decide, because some of these terms I've never heard of. Like you asked me what a diversified fund is. I have no idea. There's a definition in the statute. I've read it 4 times. I still don't know what it means. Okay? So that's when I would have to go to my financial advisor and say, hey, can you tell me what they're talking about? Or sector investment funds. The hell's a sector investment fund? The example they gave at one of the seminars I went to is like the energy stocks. That's considered a energy sector investment. Okay, fine. The goal of these changes is to increase transparency. I hate that word, but we all use it now. To reveal economic conflicts of interest when you act in your local governmental position. Yes, sir.
This is local government, what about state?
Yeah.
They have their own. You mean like our good denizens of the Illinois General Assembly?
Yeah, like
Correct.
they have one of these?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they hate it too.
Exactly?
No, I'm not gonna, I've never seen theirs, but I know they have one. They're complaining about theirs too. But they said it's unlikely for them to change it, especially since it's an election year. You know, I'm not trying to use this term derogatorily, but what the do-gooders want, they want to know when people are acting in their own self-interest. They want to know, oh, I voted to approve this contract. We're going to buy 20,000 widgets from this company for use in the township or this county or the city or whatever. But don't you, the fact that you own that company or you're the majority shareholder in that company and you're voting on it, that's a conflict of interest which would cause you significant problems. They're trying to change this form to reveal more of those potential conflicts. And believe it or not, they said that this form is watered down from what they started. And one of the other attorneys who was giving the lecture that I went to was a serves with me on the Illinois Township Attorney's Board of Directors, she said, I don't know what else you could think of if it was to be watered down. I said, well, I could think of things that they could make a lot more strictness on this. But again, you're gonna find some interesting points, and we'll talk about those in details. And we used to call this the NA form, NA 7 times and sign. They'll specifically tell you, they want you to thinking and answering. And I'll give you a general outline of what the form is in a few minutes. Here's the outline. There are 7 questions. You all have the form, so I didn't put the exact questions up here. Question number 1 requires you to disclose if you own an asset of value of $10,000 or more as of December 31st, 2021. Now, we'll go into what that means. That doesn't mean every single asset. For instance, your home, your cars, your cash accounts, your savings account, all that stuff is excluded. And we'll talk about what an asset is in a second. The second question is looking for income of your income sources of $7,500 or more during calendar year 2021. And I guess next year when we file, it would be calendar year 2022. It keeps going on. Question number 3 wants you to tell them the creditor of any, single debt of $10,000 or more. But don't worry about that because they've almost excluded all possible debts. There's only a very few debts that would qualify for being disclosed. 4, your relationships with other units of government. If you're a township official and you're employed by the city, you've got to list that. Or if your wife's employed by the city, or if you're, like I am, I'm a contractor. I have to file with regards to the city of Belvedere because I serve on the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners. But I also represent the Winnebago County Veterans Assistance Commission, the Village of Cedarville, the Village of Ryda, the Freeport Township. So I'm going to have to list all those entities. No, I don't have to tell them how much I made from each one. If they paid me more, if I get paid, even as a contractor, not as an employee, I'm going to have to tell them. It's not unusual for people, if you're active in local government, you work for one and you're maybe an elected official of the other, or something on those lines. Question number 5, lobbyists. Obviously, the most important question is 1. That's when all the questions come in about. What is that? How does this mean? What does that mean? But these other ones are out there too. Whether you or a family member has an economic relationship with a registered lobbyist. Question 6, in the previous calendar year, did you receive gifts or honoraria exceeding as an individual gift or as a aggregate more than $500, other than from family members who are not registered lobbyists? Okay. And question number 7 is, what is the name of a spouse or family member who's employed by a public utility? Why is that? Anyone want to guess why we're asking about public utilities now? Now, Michael Madigan might be able to tell you all about that, and our friends at Commonwealth Edison. So, asset. Question number 1, we're talking about disclosing an asset. How do you tell if it's an asset? 3-step process. Was it worth more than $10,000? $10,000 or more on December 31st, 2021. If no, you stop there, it's not an asset. Second of all, who's the record owner? Yourself, you and your spouse, or you and your minor child? I don't have the word minor in there, minor child has to be added. Or children. If you're sharing a piece of real estate with your child, that would qualify. So it's got to be value, who owns it, of record, and is it on the list of assets that have been excluded, that are defined as not assets? Yes, ma'am?
Where does a trust come in?
It's in there. We'll talk about trust. There's a whole bunch of different types of trusts that may have an effect here. At the seminar at Toy, we talked about living trusts, which are different than normal trusts, okay? But we'll come back to that in a few minutes.
So I'm just going to ask, how do we, the asset, that's what we gotta look at then is,
You don't have to say how much the asset is, what its value is. You don't have to say how you own it. I mean, like, what's your percentage ownership? All you have to do is say, investment into real property, like farmland, located on McConnell Road in unincorporated Stevenson County. Bingo. You probably, I would say, I'd list the road, although people are just saying unincorporated, or whatever township it may be in. I'll go to you in a second. Did I answer your question?
that helps.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, kind of following with that, with an IRA, all you have to do is list the name.
Well, IRAs are not automatically assets. We gotta look at the list of things that are excluded, okay? And if it's a retirement account, you have an argument that it's excluded, no matter what value it is. If you have $100,000 in an IRA and it's in a retirement account, it's not an asset because it's on the list of excluded items defined as not an asset. That's why people got so upset at the beginning. I got talking about all my IRAs, my mutual funds, my house. No,
Stocks and shares, is that part of it?
it's on the list. We'll see in a second.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, when you say yourself and your spouse, these are not individualized, you're saying that. Because if you're a joint ownership in something, you have to list it even if your share is.
If it qualifies. If you own it with your brother who you don't live with, that's not your property. They're not looking for that. They're looking for items you own, or you and your spouse own, or you and your minor child own. You and your uncle is not a minor child, allegedly, hopefully. Okay. And again, we'll go through the list of not assets. You see why it might be a good idea to talk to your financial advisor, especially when you're talking about what type of investments you hold. Because you don't ask me, because I don't know diddly squat about investment. That's why I am a financial advisor. Okay, these are examples of what could be stocks. Of course, if you own it with your brother, it wouldn't count because it's not owned by you, your spouse, or you and your minor child or children. Bonds, sector mutual funds. That's what got me like, what the hell is a sector mutual fund? Energy funds is one example they gave us. Sector exchange traded funds. I don't know what it is. Ask your financial advisor. Commodity futures. And if it's only worth, let's see,
Less than 10,000.
if it's less than $10,000, you don't have to worry about it because it doesn't qualify as an asset. Okay, business interests. Like if you own a business together, or you own it solely, like I own a law firm, me, myself, and I'm a sole proprietor. That's my business asset, that's an asset. Partnership assets, investment real estate, and beneficial interest in trusts. Here's where one trust comes up. If you have a beneficial interest in a trust, and it's in your name, and it's more than $10,000, you may have to disclose it. These are not assets. In the statute, it specifically defines what the word asset means. And instead of giving you this long 18-line paragraph, I'm trying to break it down so it makes it more logical. Personal residence, no matter how much it's worth, is not an asset. You don't have to disclose it. Personal vehicles, tangible personal property. You know what personal property is? Everything that's not real estate or a fixture that's permanently attached to the real estate. Annuities, pensions, including government pensions. I misspelled that word. I'll change that. I was getting to doing this at midnight last night, folks. Surprised there's not more misspellings. Bonds, notes, or securities issued by any branch of federal, state, or local government. Medicare benefits. Inheritances or bequests other than beneficial interests and trusts. So many people of Illinois have hid their ownership of things by using land trusts. No Supreme Court in the United States of America has ever upheld the validity of a land trust, other than the Illinois Supreme Court. Every other state Supreme Court that considered it has found them to be void, because land trusts are so different that the opposite of what normally a trust is. But in Illinois, we could use land trusts. When DePaulo built a brand new law school, they didn't buy the land, they formed 6 different land trusts and had the different trusts buying the land so that people wouldn't jack up the price on them. And they hid who actually owned it. That was actually a story I heard when I was in law school 41 years ago, so I still remember that. Retirement accounts are not assets. So if the IRA is in a retirement account, it's not an asset, no matter how much money you have in it.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said personal vehicles are not an asset,
That is correct.
but my tractor is.
Your,
If I farm.
farmer,
Tractor,
okay.
combine,
Actually, we're gonna get to farm equipment, but let me just answer it this way. It all depends who owns it. If it's owned by Smith Farm LLC, it's not in your name, so it's not an asset. And if it's a tangible personal property, even if it was in your name, it should be exempt. Tangible personal property is exempt from being an asset.
Can I go one step farther?
Sure.
Going back to what is an asset, sorry. This
No
was
problem.
Something the trustee asked. If he has a high-valued bull that is papered and registered, worth a lot of money.
Who owns
Is that
it?
tangible?
Sure, absolutely.
So that's not an asset.
That chair is tangible personal property. So the bull, the livestock would be too. If he doesn't own it, if it's owned by a corporation or a LLC or even a partnership, you could argue that it's not in my name, so I don't have to disclose it. If it's not my name, then it's still tangible personal property and I shouldn't have to disclose it. Okay. Also, further examples that are listed right in the statute that are not assets. Diversified funds. I don't know what it means. There's a definition in there. Retirement accounts. College savings plans that are qualified tuition plans. Ask your financial advisor. Qualified tax advantage savings programs that allow individuals to save for disability-related expenses. Didn't know anything like that existed, but I guess they do. So those are not assets by the statute. Okay, what don't you have to, if you suppose it's an asset and you gotta disclose it, what don't you have to say? How much it's worth? Doesn't make a difference if it's $10,001 or if it's $10 million. You don't have, the value you don't have to disclose. Farmland, investment real estate, McConnell Road, whatever West Point Township, Illinois, something like that. Street address for investment property. If you own a house that you're renting out, all you have to do is investment real estate, Freeport, Illinois. You don't have to say where it's at. You don't say how much it is. You don't have to say who you own it with. Okay? If the value of the item on December 31st, 2021 was less than $10,000, again, that's the key date for this. People are attaching copy of their investment statements, their monthly account statements they get from their advisors. No, don't do that, because anyone can pick it up and read it, and then your account number's on there, and you may have some identity theft issues besides this whole thing. Don't just attach things to it, just answer the question with what they want. You don't have to tell how much you own of it, okay? But if the value of your ownership portion is $10,000 or more, you gotta disclose it. You don't have to hide the type of ownership, joint tenancy, tenancy by the entirety, tenancy in common. That's not required. Specific examples of where you may need to disclose. Farmland. Yeah, and not the house portion, not the residence of your farm where you might live on, but the other farm that you has, the barns, the outbuildings, and the pastures and the areas that are cropped. And assuming it's worth more than $10,000, and if you're a farmer, I presume your outcrop area and your outbuildings are worth more than $10,000. Farm equipment. You know, if it's tangible personal property, you don't need to disclose it, even if it's more than $10,000. That was a real hard point at the seminar, farm equipment. And finally just said, look it says tangible personal property. I don't have to disclose it, no matter what its value is. Now, if the land or equipment or the title is held by a corporation, limited liability company, or partnership, then you don't have to disclose it by saying, it's not my name. It's another legal entity. It's not me, or me and my spouse, or me and my minor child. It's Smith Farm Incorporated, or Smith Farming LLC. You know, that's not in your name. Okay. Social Security benefits. And these come from the Q&A from the toy seminar. Social Security benefits are probably exempt. It's considered a pension. I'd argue it's a pension, even though it comes from the federal government. Cemetery boards, this is a question I was asked in the toy seminar. If they oversee expenditure of public funds, they have to file disclosure. And remember, your township supervisor, you're the one who's got to tell the county clerk every February or March which person she has to send economic interest statements to for your township. Every year it should be coming in, you have to file. If you inherit real estate, this is the one I'm really not sure of, but this is what they said. In the first year you inherit real estate, it's exempt because it's an inheritance. The second year that you own it, it's probably an investment real estate, and then you would have to disclose it, if it's assuming it's over $10,000, held by you and your spouse, or you and your minor child or children. So it changes in that second year. That's what the so-called experts said. I'm not going to contradict them. And one of the questions we talked about income, your sources of income, you don't have to disclose your spouse's source of income. It's just your source of income. Okay. This leads right into question number 2. You must disclose income during calendar year 2021 if you made $7,500 or more from any one entity other than the township for which you're filing this statement of economic interest. So if you're a township official and you're also employed by another unit of government and you made more than $7,500 during 2021, you're going to have to disclose that. If you sold an item which qualifies as an asset and you made a capital gain of $7,500 or more during calendar year 2021, then you'd have to disclose that. You don't need to include your spouse's income on this, and it excludes income from the office for which you're filing. I'm filing this because I'm township supervisor of Johnson Township, therefore I don't have to include my salary and compensation from Johnson Township for my role as supervisor in this. They're talking about other than that. Definition of income. Income means pension income and any income from whatever source derived required to be reported, I'm sorry if I'm shouting, required to be reported on the filer's federal income tax return. The shorthand is, if it's on your income tax return, it's income. Okay, unless you can. So income does not include, as you can see here, compensation earned for the services if you're filing it because you're a township supervisor, you don't have to count that income does not include your salary from being township supervisor. It does not include investment or interest returns on items excluded. If it's not an asset and you made money on it, because the fund produced income or dividends or whatever, that's not income in this definition. Or income, it doesn't include income from the sale of a personal residence or personal vehicle. Okay, those are not income. Here's the examples the statute gives us of what is income. Compensation for services rendered or to be rendered, that's required to be reported to the IRS. Earnings or capital gains from the sale of assets. And the word asset is what it means that we talked about before. It's not any asset. Remember, go back to the three-part test. So worth more than 10 grand on December 31st. Do I own it in my name, or me and my wife, me and my spouse, or me and my minor child or children? And is it not on the excluded list? Earnings, profit, interest or dividend income from assets again. It's from, remember the definition of assets. Revenue from leases and rentals, royalties, prizes, awards, or barter. Forgiveness of debt. Earnings derived from annuities or trusts other than testamentary trusts. Okay. Again, don't ask me what a testamentary trust is. I don't do that type of work. Oh, you have a question?
Yeah, if you sell farmland, is that disclosure on more than one of these questions? Is there, if there's a capital gain, or is it just on that first question of $10,000 or more?
Well, it's not really $10,000, and how do you hold it? Okay, farmland's not on the list of excluded items.
Right.
It may be considered, or would normally be considered investment real estate. You're making money on it. So if you make more than $7,500 on the sale, then you'd have to report it under this as income. Okay, question number 3 talks about debts. Let me tell you, in the real world, there's hardly any debts that are ever going to qualify to be disclosed, okay? It doesn't include the thing that you get through the normal course that anyone can get, such as mortgages, loans, or credit card debts, you know, as long as it's available to everybody on the same general terms. Now, if you get a sweetheart deal, ding, 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 red flag should go up, you know, and it doesn't include debts, like I said, mortgages, student loans, credit cards. It excludes debts that you to family members, but you got to be careful, because one of the points they made during suppose your uncle loans you $15,000 for whatever reasons. Your uncle's not a family member according to the definition in the statute. You would think, oh yeah, uncle, family member. No, not true. Not going to work. So I mean, a loan from your uncle may require such disclosure. But usually people aren't doing sweetheart deals, unless you work for ComEd. Other governmental units. Okay, this is where especially in the rural areas out here, I mean, you know, not counting the office for which you're filing. Hey, I'm township supervisor, so not counting township supervisor for this township. What other governmental units am I or my spouse employed? Serve as an independent contractor, that's what hooks me into making all those disclosures. Or serve as an elected or appointed office holder. I mean, there are people can be, you can be a township supervisor, you can be on the county board too. So you'd have to disclose the county board, the fact that you serve on the county board. Yes, sir.
So if I'm on the so I'm a township supervisor and I also supervise the multi-township, I'd have to also list the multi-township.
As far as I understand, a multi-township is a separate entity, yes. That would be, all you have to do is disclose it. I serve as a trustee for the Johnson Smith Township, multi-township district.
Is that only if you're getting an income coming in?
Oh, it doesn't say anything in here about income.
Okay, so if you're a precinct committee person?
Employ, well, see, that's not you're not an official of a government then. That's a political party.
Okay, gotcha.
Precinct committeemen are political party officials,
What
not
about
government.
assessors? What about assessors? Then when they go out to the county, different counties, and they assess
It depends what the relationship is. If they're hired, if you are a township supervisor in Johnson Township and you also have your own assessing business that you get hired by other townships and other counties, you would have to disclose that. You're a contractor. See, the word contractor never used to be in there, so I never had to worry about it. Well, now I gotta worry about it. Because I'm on a contract to do work for different governmental entities. Why are you shaking your head, Stephen?
No, my neck hurts.
Oh, I thought he was disagreeing with me.
Never.
Okay, so again, either that employs you or your spouse, or that you or your spouse serve as an independent contractor for, or that you and your spouse are an elected or appointed office holder. So if you're township supervisor and your spouse is on the county board, you gotta report that. And she's gonna have to report, she or he, your spouse is gonna have to report, hey, my spouse is a township supervisor on their form. Okay, here we go. I can't imagine this is occurring too much out here, but we have to talk about it. Lobbyists. And I learned by preparing this lecture that I know there are state registered lobbyists, but there are other governmental entities in Illinois that also have registered lobbyists. And I mean, not, as far as I can tell, not representing them, but that does happen. But, you know, you can register with counties or other cities, and I'm sure there's probably some of our home rule brethren who probably may have that requirement. If you are in an economic relationship with a registered lobbyist, you must disclose it. Okay, what does the word economic relationship means? I put it up there. You read it, you figure it out. I mean, I like this idea, or if you're entitled to receive more than an amount of money in excess of the salary of the governor. The governor gets like $200,000 a year. So if you're going to make more than $200,000 because of your share, you got to disclose that. Or if you and your spouse or minor children are going to make more than $400,000, you're going to have to disclose it from the lobbyist. I would agree, receiving $400,000 from a lobbyist is a economic relationship. I'll volunteer right now. Where they want to share, that's fine. Question number 6. During the previous year, at any one single time or in the aggregate, did you receive a gift or honoraria which is more than $500? How many people in this room get honorariums? I do. I teach twice a year at the Statewide Association of Fire and Police Commissioners. They don't pay me, they give me an honorarium.
Which is what?
Yeah.
What is
$500 per course, so about $1,500 a year. I teach the discipline of police officers and firefighters, and I teach the recertification course for the members of the boards of fire and police commissioners. And it's either a single gift or combined. If they give you $250 today, and they give you $25, and then they give you $300, that you hit the $500, as long as it's within the calendar year. It doesn't have to be one single gift of $500 or more. It can be an aggregate too. It excludes gifts from a family member who is not known to be a registered lobbyist. So if you know that your family member is a registered lobbyist and they give you gifts of $500 or more, you have to disclose that.
That means Christmas is out.
Okay? And again, this requires, remember, a good faith disclosure. If you don't know it, if your nephew is working in Southern Illinois and you don't really know what he does, and he sends you a check because you're the best aunt and uncle you ever saw, you know, you could argue, I didn't know, you don't have to go look. You don't have to go look and search for all the registered lobbyists in Illinois. But if you know that a family member is one, and they're going to give you money or anything of value of $500 or more, then a disclosure is required. I mean, that kind of sounds common sense, which is really surprising they figured that out and put it in here. Okay, who's employed by a public utility, and why do we have this section? We're going to call this the comment question. But it's not limited to ComEd. If you look at the definition of public utility, it's much broader, although it does exclude ones run by units of local government. Like everybody's got their own water and sewer, all the cities and villages. That doesn't include. They're not talking about that as a public utility. The question is whether you, your spouse, or your immediate family member who lives with you. The only problem with that is that the statute does not define the term immediate family member. We don't know who the immediate family member is. Well, it defines family member, but not the word immediate, so. And they gotta be living with you too. It's not just, your child is grown, as they live in Chicago and they work for ComEd. They gotta be living with you. Definition of family: spouse, children, stepchildren, parents, step-parents, siblings, step-siblings, half-siblings, sons-in-law, daughters-in-law, grandparents, and grandchildren, as well as the parents and grandparents of the spouse, and any person living with the filer. So, I mean, if you have a friend from college who's living with you, and he or she works for ComEd or works for Illinois Consumer Power, if they're living with you, that would be, even though they're not related by blood or marriage, you could argue that that requires them to be disclosed.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
what about ex-spouse, ex-husband, ex-wife?
It doesn't fit in the list, does it?
That's good.
Not on the list. Well, and he's kidding me because I live with my ex-wife, because we're engaged to be remarried. And
What?
you knew that, anyways.
Oh, I did not.
Anyways,
Public disclosure.
yeah.
You just did it.
Hey, it worked for my parents, why gotta work for me? Okay. Anyway, so again, this is all in response to our friends at Commonwealth Edison. So that's why that section's in there. There are some other really good, if you have more questions besides talking to your financial advisor, tax preparer, or accountant, there's a video of the seminar that we went to on April 14th that can be available from Toy, although they may ask you to pay for it, I don't know. It was only $25 for the seminar. The Secretary of State has a guidance on this, which everybody agrees is totally garbage and totally doesn't help a thing. But they have it, and I, good faith compliance. Well, what did you do? I looked at the Secretary of State's guidance. Oh, okay, that's a good faith effort. There was a February 22 article in Toy's Perspective magazine. The Illinois Municipal League has got did you bring those forms over, Barbara?
No, I didn't, I left them there.
The Illinois Municipal League can't do these things at midnight. And you can find it there. Just cut and paste that into your browser, and it'll take you to the page. That's actually, the fact sheet is actually a PDF document. They'll open a PDF, and you can use that. And the Illinois Municipal League also has a legal brief on it too, on that issue. So those are some other good sources. Yes, Mr. Sellers, sir.
Mike, would it be okay if I cut and paste that into an email and send it to all the supervisors?
Sure, absolutely. And the Illinois Municipal League stuff is not behind a paywall. It's out there for anyone who wants to look at their website. And since I do municipal work, I look at their website just to tell you about it. Excuse me 1 second. There. Okay, question and answers. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Said NA no more, what are you supposed to put?
I was thinking the same thing.
Well, it says right on the form. I believe it says none. If it doesn't qualify, you put none. Don't do the NA.
It's a few
Between
more
none and
letters.
non-applicable.
Pardon me?
What's the difference between none and non-applicable?
Because the form says none. Why would you want to piss them off? Don't give them a reason to react badly.
You know, being pissed off goes both ways.
Yeah, I know, I understand that, but they can cause a lot more trouble for you than you can for them. I mean, if you want to put NA, nobody's gonna go to jail for putting NA. Yes, sir.
Yeah, back to the question of what is not an asset.
Yes, sir?
Give me a good definition of what tangible personal property is.
Okay, this is real simple. You learned this from day one in law school. Personal property is everything that is not real estate. That is tangible. Okay, that has an existence. This desk is a tangible personal property.
You mean what you can touch?
What you can touch, what you can feel. It's not a land. It's not permanently attached to the land, which they call a fixture. And so, this is personal property. Everything that's not land is personal property. It can be tangible or intangible. Like if you own goodwill in a business, you can't touch it, but that has a value. If you buy a business and they have a really good reputation, you want that. You want to keep that goodwill. That's an intangible. You can't touch it. Okay? And I would argue that NFT is a intangible personal property. You know what an NFT is now? It's all those crazy people who buy little computer pictures, non-fungible tokens they're called, and they're paying $3 million. And they actually don't have the actual object, they just have a website or a picture of it. Okay, well, Bitcoin's a little bit different, I stay far away from that.
It still isn't that, it isn't something you can touch.
That's right.
You can only see.
Yeah, Bitcoin is you have to mine Bitcoin by mathematical equations, which is crazy. More questions, anything else? Did I confuse you sufficiently?
I think so.
Good.
They did NA, it's okay, but they really should have done none.
They call us lawyers, Eric Gumerman always used to call me a professional paranoid, because I was always telling him what could go wrong. See, our job as attorneys is to give you advice. And you can turn to me and say, you know, Mike, that's really interesting. I found that fascinating. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what I want. My job's over. I gave you the advice. Whether you take it or not is your choice. But so we're always worrying about, if you do this, this what can blow up in your face. And that's why we do that, just so you know that, okay, I made the decision I took it as a risk, and I wasn't surprised by it. Yes, ma'am.
When I was on the county board, Dean Ament, and you know too.
Oh, I know Dean well.
Okay, he said, it's the nun sheet.
Yeah.
He always said the nun, not N-A, nun.
Yeah.
And not N-U-N either.
I'm gonna leave that alone.
Dean would say that.
I was Dean's lawyer for many years.
This does have a lot of gray areas, though.
Oh, it has all enormous about it. And it's gonna be changed. Because the people who wanted this are not happy. When you deal with legislation, you want this big gigantic pile. Well, the first year, you get this little pile. And then you come back year two, and you keep on building more and getting more and more added, because they won't do all of it at once. But they'll do some at the beginning and some later, and you just gotta understand, I want all of it. You can't have all of it. You're gonna get this much, and the reformers are not happy that this was watered down. So they're gonna come back and say, hey guys. Now there's talk that in the veto session, which occurs every November, the General Assembly is gonna take this up again. But the people from Toy said, not gonna happen. It's election year, they're not gonna talk about, closing down on disclosures in an election year. Wait till next year. Okay, we'll see. Yes, ma'am.
Just verifying, because going through this, every question other than 4 and 7 list none in parentheses or quotes on it, but you can still use none on 4 and 7 and still not be.
I don't know why you can't use whatever you want to use. I can't imagine any government official that's that petty that's going to say, hey, wait a minute, you should have used none, or you should have used NA, or you should have used no. As long as you make a clear, good faith disclosure, you've complied with the law. And again, good faith, not absolutely, I gotta go search for every registered person in the state of Illinois so I know if this person's, you don't need to do that. Anything else? Thank you all for coming. I really enjoyed this time. Yes, sir.
Sorry. I gotta go back to the farm thing. I've got one trustee that passed away, I've got 2 trustees that are threatening to resign, and myself as supervisor, I'm not so sure I'm gonna proceed either. So I gotta get a little clarity on the farm part if I could.
Sure.
If the farm equipment is listed at, if you're the owner.
Yes.
It's your entity, you're the owner. If it's valued over 10,000, you have to list it.
No, it's
No.
tangible personal property.
No farm equipment.
No farm equipment.
So if it's land, that you have to put,
That's investment real estate. If it's farmland, you have to disclose that. You don't have to say how much it's worth.
right,
You just have to say, and a general description. McConnell, pardon me?
It's just Stevenson County.
No, I think you gotta do a little bit more, because the statute requires you to disclose the city and state. Whether for farmland, there's gonna be no city, you're gonna be unincorporated.
Township?
That's what they suggested. They said, on farmland, on McConnell Road, unincorporated Harlem Township, whatever. I'm sorry, I don't know what township that's in.
so if they own multiple tracts or farms, they got to list a description of each one, rather
Well,
than just.
you have to list all of them, if they're in different places. Especially if they're in different townships. Like I have a client, a good friend, who own 8,000, they farm 8,000 acres. 4,500 they own, 4,500, 4,000 or so they rent, and it's in Joe Davis, Stevenson, and Winnebago counties. So if they're not, they got public officials, but if they were, they would have to list that. If it was in their name. I'm sure it's in the name of the Smith Farm Incorporated or something like that.
Why do they find farmland to be a conflict of interest, whereas a house isn't?
Because, first of all, houses are semi-protected. It's from the 1200s, when in England, houses always gotten special protections under the law. And even in criminal law, like you can't go anywhere near a house, with rare exceptions, without a search warrant, or an arrest warrant, or an immediate emergency. And even the land right around the building, which we had a big argument, I can't remember what it's called, that was protected too, because they traditionally protected houses. As one federal judge once said to me, the only thing that's protected anymore under the Fourth Amendment is your personal residence. Which I said that was a little bit exaggeration, but anyways, that's why. And you know, the Farm Bureau has great sway in Springfield. They, there are two, some people believe that there are 2 chosen God's people in Springfield. Farmers and firefighters. Firefighters usually get whatever they want. Not police officers, but firefighters and farmers. And because farmers are such a major agricultural engine for this state, they obviously don't want to discourage them. So that's why they sometimes give special protection to agricultural operations.
Basically, all they're doing is just writing down what they have. There's nothing dollar amount,
No dollar amounts,
so I don't, yeah.
you know,
Unless it's sold.
unless you made more than $7,500 on it, in the last calendar year.
The reason I bring this up, I happen to be in a position there where some farmland was sold, but I owned it with 2 of my nieces that were my brother and I owned the farm together, and he passed away, and then I owned it with 2 of my nieces, and we sold. So that would
Is
have
it-
to be reported.
Is that an asset? Owned more than $10,000? Is it owned by you, or you and your wife, or you and your minor children?
No.
No, it's not an asset under the statute. It's owned by your nieces, you and your nieces. So that would not qualify as an asset. So the capital gains on that property, when it was sold, wouldn't have to be reported because it's not an asset as defined under the statute.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else? Well, you all have a great evening and enjoy.